Right, a protest outside of the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines ended in a violent police crackdown in which a number of demonstrators were rammed by a police van. The controversial president of the island nation was out of the country when the incident happened, as he continues his trip to China, where he hopes to forge stronger relations with that nation. RT's Alex Mihailovich is joining us now from Toronto with more on the story. Alex, let's start with this protest against the U.S. military presence in the Philippines. How did this, it was a peaceful demonstration. How did it turn violent?
Well, let's go straight to the video. I think it says it all. It's a little bit graphic, just to warn our viewers. A graphic in the sense that people are getting hit by a van. Look, 1,000 protesters were out in front of the embassy itself. According to the police officer that was in the van, he said they started hitting his van with sticks and such, and he started moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And as you can see in the video, people get run over. Now, 23 people were arrested. Miraculously, the injuries were minor after this little incident happened here. It's unbelievable that somebody wasn't hurt more I guess, drastically than what we hear. The situation itself, these people were there to protest U.S. troops being in the Philippines. We know that the Philippines, as a population, are very split when it comes to the American presence in that country. Some people believe that they have tight ties to America. Others believe that America should not be there. We know the history between the two nations. There's been some ups and some very big downs as well. So this protest itself, I mean, it's not something that is unusual, but it's unusual that it took this line that somebody was actually driving a van over people. Now, President Rodrigo Duterte is in China. He's already addressed this. He said that the police officer in question and that the whole ordeal will be looked at carefully. He's not going to make any announcements until he returns to the Philippines from his diplomatic mission.
I mean, Alex, that video was just absolutely shocking. I guess it's good news that it looks worse than it actually was. As mentioned, President Duterte is in China this week in what seems to be an effort to build a stronger bond between the Philippines and China. How is this trip progressing? Are they working on like their own kind of trans-Pacific partnership?
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, we know, like we've said, the ties between the U.S. and the Philippines have been very, very strong. Duterte, just a couple of weeks ago, said military exercises that have been going on between the two nations for over 30 years are going to stop. He's changing gears, and he's looking towards Russia and China now. He's meeting with President Xi Jinping tomorrow, but so far, it seems that some sanctions that were up against the Philippines from China are being lifted. Bananas, pineapples, and other fruits and vegetables are probably going to be lifted as well during his stay there. It's been a diplomatic row between the two nations. We know that South China has basically claimed the whole South China Sea as theirs, and there was a court order basically stating that the couple of islands off the Philippines were not Chinese territory, and this was a big row between the two nations. Since Duterte came into power, he said, let's calm the rhetoric down. We don't want to go to war with China because we know how that would end, and let's just not talk about this on this trip. So he's not really addressing this at all. What they're talking about is more about trade, and also a big thing is that China supports his drug policies at home, which seems that most people do in the Philippines itself. One Chinese billionaire is saying that he's going to build a drug rehabilitation center. So a lot of goodwill now coming from China to the Philippines, and that's what Duterte is banking on, is that he can progress forward with this and have an ally in the region out of China instead of an enemy. He's also going to go to Japan, and he's saying he might make a trip to Russia, where he will be talking to Prime Minister Medvedev there as well. We've heard from the Russians saying that they're ready to work with the Philippines. It's gone so far as Duterte saying that the next military exercises, or ones coming up, might be between the Philippines, Russia, and China, so all three nations. This would be a massive shift in that region, and a big difference than when you have the U.S. and the Philippines, or if you're inviting now China and Russia, which would just change everything when it comes to the South China Sea. The Philippines were really the biggest hurdle for China when it comes to that. So it's going to be interesting to see. They're saying that they're going to negotiate, they're going to talk about it. So from that aspect, a lot of things can change in coming years. But for right now, Duterte, his number one thing is to open trade and to see money come into this country.
Yeah, certainly a shift in the tides with U.S.-Philippines relations, especially after, we've heard President Duterte call President Obama some kind of unsavory names. So I guess we'll look to see what happens in the coming months. Thanks so much for that. That's RT correspondent Alex Mihailovich in Toronto.